we'd like to acknowledge that this podcast is being performed on the Toronto traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit.
And we'd also like to acknowledge that this podcast is being filmed on the traditional Miami lands of the Tequesta peoples and the Miccosukee peoples. We highly encourage you to check out and learn more about these Indigenous groups. They're fascinating. Thank you very much and enjoy the podcast.
Why is we're going to be trying something new. Rachel and we're trying a new format that's a little bit more animated. We're going to be debating. So it's a totally different format. We're going to start with a debate. We are going to debate about it for 10 minutes. I'm going to time it. And then we're going to go into sports spectacles. Then we're going to do another topic of debate. Then the marketplace. And then we have a special surprise at the end that we're going to be bringing back. And with that, well, let's get started. So the first topic of debate tonight, and let me just get my handy-dandy timer here. I should have set this up earlier. My bad. Here we go. The first topic of debate tonight is we're going to go into the NBA. And will the Toronto Raptors repeat as champions? Rachel, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. So for me, I think definitely they have a good chance, especially now since it's essentially a whole new season. Everyone's starting from scratch. They started from a clean slate. They're healthy for the first time all season, and then you now have not only healthy, but Marc Gasol's lost a bunch of weight. So you have a lean Marc Gasol who should be fitter, and he's such a key part of the team, so he should have more fit. Marc Gasol's huge, and as I said before, they're healthy for the first time, which hasn't happened all season. So that's really going to go a long way in their favor. And they actually came back to train before anyone else. So they have about a 2-week advantage on everyone else because they didn't want to go back to Toronto because half the team was already in the U.S. and they had the 14-day quarantine. So they met in Florida about 2 weeks before training camp actually started. So they've already been down there for a long time, getting the lay of the land, getting used to it, getting their reps and working out with the team. So that's been really helpful, and they've been way ahead of other teams from that regard. And so that's all really good. But the season is coming back. The first games have already started, but the Raptors' first game is happening the weekend that we're recording this, so it'll already happen by the time you're watching this. But they have a tough schedule. So for their 8 games, for their seeding games to determine where they finish, I mean, they've pretty much all but locked up second place at this point, but they have to come back and play the Lakers. Then they're playing Miami, Orlando, Boston, Memphis, Philadelphia, and Denver. So those are all playoff teams that they're playing, which is pretty tough for your first 8 games to come back after not playing for 4 months. So with that said, even though I said that they've already been practicing and getting their reps in and they've been playing scrimmages, it's not the same as actually getting into game action. And even though they've been healthy, the guys that have been healthy, the guys that have been injured, they haven't probably played any meaningful basketball since January, February, so they might be sluggish. So they might not be so good right off the gate because they're still getting used to being back into full NBA speed. Now, even though these games basically, I mean, they mean something, but they pretty much already locked up second place. But a lot of these teams are teams that could be playing in playoffs, and it could actually, they could drop. They still could drop to 34th depending on how other teams do. So it's not set in stone they'll finish in second. So these games are important, and they're all really good teams that they're playing against. Now, when they actually get into playoffs, if they stick with the same structure as last season, when they have 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, and then reseeding, etc., they would have a tough road as well because you would play Orlando first round, which is doable. Then you'd have to go through Miami, which is a really good young up-and-coming team, which could be interesting for us. And then you'd have to play Milwaukee in the conference finals should you get through Miami. Now, this is who they met last year in the conference finals, and they were down 0-2 and came back and won 4 straight games. However, last season they had someone called Kawhi Leonard, the Claw, if you will, who is a playoff monster. Kawhi Leonard's no longer with the Toronto Raptors. He is in LA playing for the Clippers. So not having Kawhi Leonard, I think it will be a huge factor for them in playoffs because he really does take it to another level. And it wasn't until head coach Nick Nurse put Kawhi Leonard on Giannis Antetokounmpo that they actually started winning games, because the first 2 games they lost, he wasn't defending him and they were getting killed. Kawhi went on Giannis and then shut him down for the rest of the series. Without Kawhi as your primary defender on Giannis, he's basically free to roam around and do whatever he wants. He basically has one move that he does, but he does that one move really, really well. It's hard to stop him. It's like Alexander Ovechkin in hockey. He has his one shot for the point, but you can't stop because it's just so good. So I really think that without Kawhi, I think they'll have a hard time beating Giannis. I just don't think Pascal Siakam's there yet. I love Marc Gasol, and he's a great defender, but he is also old. He's not as agile as Kawhi Leonard. Maybe now that he's slimmed down, that could help him, and maybe he'll be better in the playoffs because he'll be in better shape and he'll be thinner. But they definitely have a chance. I mean, anytime you're in playoffs, you have a chance. But just because they don't have the Kawhi factor, and I don't think Pascal Siakam's at that level yet. Kyle Lowry is very inconsistent in playoffs. Marc Gasol is great, but he's also not your go-to guy. They also don't have Danny Green, who was really key for them last year. So I don't think that they'll win again. They definitely can. But even if they do beat Milwaukee, let's say, which I don't think they will at this point, then you have to go through one of the 2 LA teams in the final. You're either playing LeBron James, who, as we know, has history of absolutely destroying the Toronto Raptors. He's made our town LeBronto, our city LeBronto. Or then you're playing the Clippers and your old pal Kawhi Leonard, who, guess what, knows all your secrets. And yes, you know his too, but he also has a better team backing him up. So even if they do get past Milwaukee, I don't see how they can beat one of the 2 LA teams in the playoffs. So I don't think they'll repeat. It kills me to say that, but looking at it from a purely objective standpoint, I don't think that they win. They have a chance, but I don't see it happening with the team they have right now.
No, and I have to say, for the first debate, I totally agree with you. That team is an absolute shell of what it was, because Kawhi Leonard did absolutely everything for that team. Toronto, I don't even see them going past the second round. However the NBA playoffs work, they're not going to go past it because they're just not there. They're way too old. They're just not consistent. You know, Pascal Siakam coming at, when is he going to get there? He's not young anymore. He's not some young 22, 21-year-old kid. He's getting there. He's entering his prime, basically.
I think he's like 25, 24.
Exactly. 25. He's in his prime at this point. So it's like, when is he going to get there? Yeah, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but also he was with Kawhi last year, and that elevated him as a player. Sure, he's been doing well this year, and he's actually learned something from it.
Yeah, he has.
Man.
He has.
But Toronto's defense is also a mess as well, in my opinion. I don't think it's very solid. And as we know with sports, defense wins championships. So that's why a team like the Miami Heat, while they might statistically make a 109-109 final and go into overtime, the Miami Heat, based on their defense alone, is going to make that final shot, and they're going to squeeze out a win, just like they did in Toronto this year.
The Toronto Raptors defense, to its credit, it did improve a lot during the season. It started out really bad, especially a lot of the subs, and with Nick Nurse's strong coaching, because he's very much a defensive coach, it did get a lot better.
Yeah, a lot better doesn't cut it in playoffs. Playoffs is a whole new game, so that's just nonsense. And realistically,
I think you're being a little bit too hard.
No. Realistically, the team that's gonna take this, or an Eastern team that's gonna go to the finals, is probably the Miami Heat.
Oh, come on! You're just saying that because you're from Miami. No, absolutely not.
I'm biased.
We
can beat the Raptors.
Miami's not going to beat Milwaukee.
Who smoked Milwaukee this year?
Who
smoked Milwaukee this year?
Miami. Playoffs are a whole different game. Miami is too young and inexperienced.
Miami can do it.
Absolutely not.
Plenty of experience under the belt.
They're too young and inexperienced. They're not going to beat Milwaukee.
No, they have plenty of experience under their captain, Udonis Haslem.
Yeah, but the rest of the team is green. The rest of the team is green.
No, it's not.
It is. There's a lot of rookies. There's a lot of young players on that team.
There's young players. Doesn't mean they're rookies. There's 2 rookies, and they're killing it right now.
Yeah, but those
Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero.
But those young players on
Tyler
Miami,
Hero,
they're not proven.
once again, is healthy, and he's going to tear it up again like he did before he got hurt.
Miami players are not proven.
At least to the Eastern Conference Final.
There's no way they're going to the finals.
And they're going to defend themselves.
There's no way they're going to the finals.
No, you know what? At least they're going to the Eastern Conference Final. They're going to do it based on their world-class defense because they have world-class coaching in Eric Spoelstra. The Raptors aren't even going to get past the second round.
You think the Heat's going to beat the Raptors?
Absolutely.
Oh, you're so wrong.
You guys.
You're so wrong.
We can beat you guys any day of the week.
The Heat are a young, inexperienced team. The Raptors are the defending champs. They know how to win.
Really, they don't know how to win because the only way they won was because of Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, he was the main reason.
That's the only way they won.
He wasn't the
Kawhi
only
Leonard
reason.
was like the LeBron James of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
He wasn't the only reason. He was the main reason.
Yes, he was.
See, I'm pretty sure Siakam averaged 21 points.
I'm sorry. Pascal Siakam would not have pulled off an amazingly lucky shot like he did in that Game 7.
No, he wouldn't. He's not as good as Kawhi. I agree with you.
The fact that you even said that you guys were getting killed by the Bucks until you had to depend on Kawhi Leonard?
Yeah, we were.
Come on.
Yeah, we were.
Exactly. The fact that you had to depend on him is terrible. But you look at the Miami Heat, they have a different top scorer every night. They actually can depend on their whole team instead of one player.
That is a good point, actually.
They can depend on their whole team on one player.
I just remembered you guys had Jimmy Butler.
And with that, thank you very much. And with that, we are out of time for the first debate. We are out of time. We have hit 10 minutes. And I know there's so many more things you want to say right now, but we have to stop this topic. Now, we're going to go into our next segment right now, and that's going to be sports spectacles. I don't actually have soccer for sports spectacles this time around, but we're going to have across the pond in the States. We have the NBA and the NHL. So let me start with the NBA. There's a couple of matchups I really want you guys to check out that are going to be really interesting. The Raptors and the Magic, because the Magic are probably going to beat the Raptors. No, I'm just kidding. The Raptors should win that. But actually, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Los Angeles Lakers. That is going to be a heck of a game. That's definitely going to get over 100 points. You've got old Chris Paul going against his buddy LeBron James. That's going to be something quite special. Then let's go into Thursday a little bit for the NBA. We're going to have the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic versus Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks and Eric Bledsoe, I guess. So that is definitely something that you're going to have to – that's another one that's going to be really good to watch. The other one that's a little bit of a sleeper because the teams are not as good this year, but on Fridays, the Utah Jazz against the San Antonio Spurs. So, of course, we know that the San Antonio Spurs know how to win. We know that they have talent. We know that they have DeMar DeRozan, who is like a dwarf. He's almost like Dwayne Wade, but he's never going to be like Dwayne Wade. And you have the Utah Jazz, who don't really have amazing players, but they play well as a team. So I really think the San Antonio Spurs, who were clearly not what they once were, they're going to be playing against a competitive team. So that should actually be a very good game and a very competitive game. Now we're going to tune into the NHL, and that one's going to be fun. On Wednesday, we have my Florida Panthers going against the New York Islanders. To be honest, this is the second game of a back-to-back. I have a feeling the New York Islanders are going to win because the New York Islanders have played better than the Panthers, especially in their regular season matchup. But as we know, playoffs is a whole new game. But the game that I really want to be interested in is the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Ah, yes.
No, I'm not actually going to dig on the Leafs this time. But I really think this is a good challenge for the Leafs because the Leafs are a speed team, 100%. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Willie Nye, Nylander, and John Tavares, of course. You also have, an offensive monster on defense in Tyson Barrie. You also have Morgan Riley, who is an amazing defenseman in his own. But then you're facing off a gritty team like the Columbus Blue Jackets. You got the classic speed versus grit. So I think that one's going to be interesting because the Blue Jackets, last time they faced a speed team in the playoffs, they blew out the Tampa Bay Lightning and swept them. So that's something where Columbus knows how to play against a fast team. So I think that's going to be a very competitive and it's going to be a good challenge for Toronto. And the nice thing is for the first time, Toronto's not facing the Bruins in the first round. So that is a very positive thing for Toronto. So I think that's going to be a really, really, really good matchup. And then let's shift to Thursday. Let's look at the West. Well, we got the Calgary Flames and we have the Winnipeg Jets. Those are two really good teams. We've talked about them in the past with the pod, and I really think that that's going to be a really nice and exciting matchup. Let's go into Friday. We have one. We have one that's going to be interesting, but we'll see how it turns out. I don't really know how interesting it'll be, but it's going to be the Nashville Predators against the Arizona Coyotes. As we know, with John Chayka, the Arizona franchise is essentially a disaster. The Nashville Predators are really not what they used to be. So I think that should actually be a pretty competitive matchup. I think that one's going to be interesting. And then Saturday, my last sports spectacle, so to speak, is we're going to have the Las Vegas Golden Knights, which is probably the worst team name in the NHL, versus the Colorado Avalanche. I think that's going to be really exciting, simply because Las Vegas has some star players. You have players that have literally come out of nowhere, like William Karlsson. You also have one of the best scorers of the last 10 years in Max Pacioretty, and of course the Colorado Avalanche: Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. Need I say more? And those are my sports spectacles for the week.
Can I just say something about the series? It's actually technically not the playoffs, it's the play-in. So the Leafs could still play the Bruins in the first round. That's why Vegas and Colorado are meeting in the round robin to determine the seeding for the playoffs.
All right. Thanks for fact checking.
You're welcome.
Let's Jesus. Let's go into our next topic, and this one is going to be a good one. We're going to go dive into the NHL, which is definitely Rachel's specialty, and we're going to do a player-by-player comparison. So the players that I want to talk about is who is going to have a better playoff, play-in, NHL post-COVID season. I'm going to call it the post-COVID season.
There you go.
Who is going to have a better post-COVID season? You're going to have Thomas Tatar of the Montreal Canadiens or William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Go for it.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlie. So just based on simply leaving the players aside for a second, look based on who the teams are playing. As we've talked about, the Leafs are playing the Blue Jackets. The Leafs should win that. And the Montreal Canadiens are playing the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is by far the most lopsided matchup of this whole play-in series. So just taking players aside, just based simply on that, just because I think the Leafs will win and I think the Habs will lose, just based simply on that, I'm going to say Nylander because he's going to be playing longer, so he'll accumulate more points. And I think the Habs might win one game, but I think Penguins will probably win 4-1 or 3-1, whatever it's going to be. So, and I think that Leafs will probably win in three games. I think it'll be 3-2. So just based on that alone, Nylander will have a better series. But leaving that aside for a second, Nylander is also a better player. Just looking at from a purely numbers standpoint, Thomas Tatar is 29, so he's already he's still in his prime, but he's already getting closer to the end of his prime rather than the beginning of it. Nylander is only 24, so he's still in the beginning of his prime. Nylander averages 0.7 points per game in fewer seasons. Thomas Tatar averages 0.63 points per game, it's a pretty big difference, but that's still good. 0.63 points per game is still very good, but 0.7 is even better. And Nylander has 11 points in 20 playoff games, and Tatar only has 9 points in 25 playoff games. So Nylander is much better in the playoffs. and I think he's a better player overall. They're two different players. Nylander is more of a speed and skill and finesse game, kind of more hands. Tatar's got good hands as well, but he's not as fast or naturally skilled as Nylander, I think. But he is playing on their top line, whereas Nylander is playing on the Leafs' second line right now, I believe. So that's interesting. But the Leafs also have a better team, so that would be interesting to see how they match up. But just from a purely number standpoint and the fact that Nylander is younger and I think he's better and his team is better, so he'll go further, I think he will have a better post-COVID season. But I don't think the Leafs I don't envision the Leafs going far either. Like, I don't think it's going to be a good year for Toronto sports. So I don't know how much, I don't know how long his production will last, but I think he will play really well. But I don't think that the Leafs will go that far in the playoffs. So I don't think he's going to have an amazing good playoffs, but I think he'll definitely have a better playoffs than Tom Tatar. But I think in terms of the Leafs, Austin Matthews and John Tavares, I think, will probably have the best series for the Leafs.
Yeah, well, I agree and disagree. Of course, the Penguins are definitely going to beat the Habs. Like, it's kind of lopsided at this point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's definitely one factor that you're not really considering, is the fact that the Habs, especially under Dominic Ducharme as an assistant head coach, the Habs are a different team than what they were a couple of years ago. They're crafty. They're sneaky. They have found ways to pull stuff out of their butt to win games. They also are going to have a healthy Carey Price, and Carey Price shows up in the playoffs. So Carey Price, especially since he's a world-class caliber goalie, he could definitely steal a series if he wanted to.
The Penguins have had goaltending issues this year too.
So with that, I think Thomas Tatar. I think the Pens are definitely going to win like 4-2 or something the series. Oh, it's only best of 5, right? So 3-1 or something like that, 3-2, whatever it is. But you're also not counting the Carey Price factor, and that's why Thomas Tatar is on the first line. He's playing with creative players. Max Domi is a pretty good player as well. Jonathan Drouin is also a very crafty player as well. But then you have William Nylander, and yes, he's on the second line right now, but sometimes he's on the third line, sometimes he's on the fourth line. So it's like, it's hard. Yes, he's got all the talent in the world, but it's hard to judge what he's going to, where they're going to play him and what he's going to do. Of course, Mike Babcock treated him horribly, and Sheldon Keefe has been a lot better with William Nylander, and he's actually showed up ever since the way I see it is ever since he's gotten the number 88, he's definitely shown what he can do. That's my opinion, because 88 is a great number. I love Patrick Kane, folks, so 88 is a great number. But I don't know what he's going to do. There's the Leafs uncertainty. The Leafs did get defense in the summer, but they haven't improved their defense, and they have solid players like Jake Muzzin, Morgan Riley. Tyson Barrie isn't really a defenseman, even though he plays on the blue line. So the Leafs could totally botch this as well, and William Nylander might not be the factor. Like you said, Tavares, Matthews, those are going to be the guys that you're going to look for. Mitch Marner. But so if Carey Price can do what he does and the Leafs, don't do well, it's actually quite possible that Thomas Tatar will have a better post-COVID season than William Nylander, which on paper makes no sense and it's ludicrous, but I think that's going to be interesting, because this is already a wonky year. The NHL has been crazy wonky anyway. Look at last year. The St. Louis Blues were the worst team in the league for the first half of the season. Then they win the Stanley Cup. So funny enough, because Craig Berube was hired. So it's such a wonky season that it's so possible that I think Thomas Tatar, I'm going to go with Thomas Tatar on having a better season than William Nylander, simply because Carey Price back in the playoffs, because he's been out for a little while for the playoffs, and the fact that the Leafs against a physical team, which their history of playing against very physical teams is a mess. So and not great, aka 2013, aka last year, so on and so forth. So I really think Thomas Tatar will have a better post-COVID season than William Nylander, in my opinion.
Well, it's a hot take.
No, but
That is
I
a
think it's fact.
that is a hot take.
And it's funny because this is going to frustrate every Toronto fan in the world. But you know what? I'm going to go with it. And I bet you every Habs fan listening to this podcast will rejoice and they're going to say, yep, Charlie's right, as he always is. I know.
I don't know. You might need some hot sauce to go with that one there.
Very possible. I know I'm kind of acting like Skip Bayless right now, but, I figured I'd take advantage of this. But, yeah, man, I think that Thomas Tatar, if he keeps playing the way he does, because he's had a great season under Montreal, I think he can do it. Because who knows what they'll do with William Nylander. Toronto is kind of just – the aura with the Maple Leafs is just kind of weird that way and what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well, Nylander hasn't played on the fourth line at all under Keefe. He's played first and second, which is good. It's more in his skill set. But, yes, the Leafs in the playoffs are playing. They don't inspire confidence. I mean, we're going on 53 years, so it's been a while.
Hey, man, the St. Louis Blues did it, so can the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly. And I can fly to the moon tomorrow, but,
Hey, take me with you.
All right.
Take me with you, absolutely. All right, so since we're kind of at an impasse at this point, I'm going to we didn't hit the 10 minutes, folks. We hit 7 minutes, but that's all right. That was a good debate.
It was.
Thomas Tatar for the win. Anyway.
Let's go Willie Nye, the hockey guy.
Really? That's corny. That's corny.
Sorry.
No. Why are you apologizing?
I don't know.
All right. Moving along, we're going to go into a segment that is totally Rachel's, and it's called The Marketplace. So basically anything transfers, anything signings, anything coaching, hirings, firings, this is all Rachel's domain. So Rachel, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. So the first thing that we have today is kind of a what went wrong sort of deal. And we thought for the longest time that Newcastle United FC was going to be bought by the Saudi Arabian investment group. And as we know, the Arabs are very good, and the Arabs and their oil money are very good at developing soccer teams and making them good, aka Manchester City. But the deal went through at the last minute. And even basically up until the 11th hour, everyone thought the deal was going to happen, but the Saudi Arabian group had formally withdrawn. So this means that Newcastle United fans are stuck with their really bad owner, Mike Ashley, for another year. And Newcastle is a historic club, and they've just been really bad recently, which is really sad. But there's a lot of questions as to why it fell through. According to an article that I read here on The Independent, a newspaper in the UK, the human rights factor was a big issue. There's also a Cold War unfolding in the Gulf right now. So Saudi Arabia is leading a coalition of nations that have enforced an embargo on Qatar. And what's happened is that the Premier League's television rights holder in the region is based in Qatar, and these company broadcasts have been hijacked and rebroadcast. And Saudi Arabia denies any involvement, although it's likely they have been involved. And earlier this month, BN, which is an international site for sports, they were banned from operating in Saudi Arabia. So there's no legal way to watch Premier League in the country. So that probably played a big factor as well, because what's the point in having a team if you can't even watch the team in the country unless you change your rules, which, as we know, Saudi Arabia has very strict rules in that dictatorship. So that's probably a problem why that happened. And it could also just be that, I don't know, they Premier League didn't feel comfortable doing it because of the human rights issue, so they withdrew at the last minute because they have to approve all the deals. So that could be something that was interesting. And so what's interesting as well is that the woman who led the bid, Amanda Stavley, has now tried and failed twice to buy Newcastle. She also tried at least twice to buy Liverpool. So she's tried to buy a Premier League team many, many times and keeps getting denied. So definitely signals to me that something is a little bit off about her if she keeps failing at her her deals don't get approved. So that's definitely interesting. I think they would have made the team better for sure, just as we said, with all that money. But I guess the Premier League decided that human rights trump money at this point, and I'm sure fans would have liked it, but hopefully they can find a new owner that will actually spend money, because they definitely need money, because that team is really struggling and it's really unfortunate. So that's kind of the big thing for the marketplace. Another thing that I found, there wasn't really too much, just because the soccer season's over right now, so transfers are starting, but always take those with a grain of salt. And of course, all the other sports are back on, so they're not having any deals right now. But the other thing that I found was that Thiago the Spanish international is believed to be leaving Bayern Munich, and surprise, surprise, Liverpool looks like they could be the front runner for Thiago. He has 1 year left on his deal, but he appears to be leaving. And again, soccer rumors, they happen all the time, so take them with a grain of salt, but it looks as though he could be joining Liverpool. He's 29, so he's getting old for soccer, but he's still effective. So Liverpool could have another really good player on their hands for next season. And so they're interesting to see where that goes with that deal and how much they're willing to pay, because I know Jurgen Klopp has spent a lot of money this summer. So it'd be interesting to see if he's willing to spend a lot on Thiago, or if he's too much and he just doesn't want to pay for him. And that's pretty much all I have for the marketplace for this week.
Awesome. Thank you. That is definitely weird that this woman's tried to buy both Liverpool and Newcastle, and they, there's something wrong about her. I think it's interesting if the Premier League is kind of going for human rights versus money, then they should be going after the current owners of Man City. I think they're also Saudi as well. So,
okay, that would make sense. Yeah.
Perhaps I could be totally wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that they're Saudi, or they're from the United Arab Emirates.
I think they're from the Arab Emirates.
Oh, okay, then not as bad. So, that franchise really has suffered, and I really feel for them. The greatest Premier League scorer of all time is Alan Shearer, and he played for Newcastle United. So that's something just to think about, the old glory days of Newcastle. But anyway, we're going to go into our last segment. So we are bringing back an oldie. We have decided to bring back trivia. So with that, instead of me totally humiliating myself, every week we're going to be asking each other these questions. Before, it was just Rachel asking me, and I would completely fail and be frustrated and pissed off because I've got one question out of 10 right. So my trivia streak is 10%, which is really bad, especially if I'm doing a sports podcast. But this time, whoever hosts will be telling the other the trivia questions. So, you ready, Rachel?
All right, I'm ready as I'll ever be, I guess. Bring it on.
Okay, so the first question, I rated these from easy, number 1 being easy, number 5 being hard. Okay. So the first question, which NBA player has won the most titles, and how many titles?
Current NBA player?
NBA player of all time. Who's won the most? Who's won the most? Yes, who has won the most titles of all time?
Has he won them only as a player or as a player management?
Player.
Only as a player, not as management.
Player.
I know the MVP, most NBA titles. Michael Jordan.
No, that is incorrect. The answer is Bill Russell, who has won 11 NBA titles.
I thought he won the most MVP trophies. That's why the trophy's named after him.
He's won MVPs, but he's also won the most NBA championships with 11.
He's won 11. He's won 11?
Yes.
Wow, he's like Henri Richard.
As a player, he's won 11 NBA titles.
He's like Henri Richard.
Okay, let's try number 2.
I didn't find that question very easy, obviously.
Let's try number 2. You know this player.
Okay.
Who is the 4th highest Premier League scorer of all time?
4th highest of all time?
Yes. I already said the highest of all time was Alan Shearer.
Right.
Who is the 4th highest?
In terms of goals?
Yes. Goal scorer.
Is he still playing?
Yes.
Okay. Cristiano Ronaldo?
Wrong. The answer is Sergio Aguero with 180 goals
Oh, he's 4th?
all time in the Premier
Oh,
League.
I thought he was like 5th. I thought he was 5th or something. I didn't know he was 4th.
No, he is 4th all time.
Okay, I didn't know he was that high.
Number 1 is Alan Shearer with 260 Premier League goals, which is just ridiculous. Number 2 is Wayne Rooney, a midfielder.
Yeah, I knew that.
With 208 goals. Number 3, well, this is embarrassing, folks. I can't even read my own handwriting. So number 3, I can't get at you. That's about 196 goals. And number 4 is Sergio Aguero with 180 goals.
Okay, well, maybe I'll be as bad as you at this game then.
Well, no, I think you might get this next one because we're going to the NHL.
You thought I would get the first 2. So.
Well, I thought you'd get the first one, not necessarily the first 2.
Okay.
But here's number 3. Who is the only NHL player to win the Art Ross Trophy and be traded in the same season?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a good question. The only player to win the Art Ross Trophy and be traded in the same season.
He currently plays.
He's still playing.
Yes.
So how could he win the Art Ross and be traded? Oh, he won the Art Ross after the season. So he won it with his new team.
He won the Art Ross and was traded.
Right. So
after.
He won the Art Ross, but so he was traded right after. So he technically was the off season. It wasn't really the same season.
Still, who is the only player to do that?
And be traded the same season. Well, it's obviously no one on the Penguins. It's obviously not Ovechkin.
Traded in the same year.
Obviously not Ovechkin. Joe Thornton?
You got it.
Yeah, there we go.
Joe Thornton. That's right. He went from the Boston Bruins to the San Jose Sharks.
I thought it was him.
There you go. You got one right.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Okay. Get ready for the second hardest question I have.
All right.
Well, actually, yeah. This will be the second hardest question I have.
Okay.
Who has, and we're still in hockey.
Okay.
Who has the 3rd highest save percentage all time for goalies?
Is it era adjusted or non-era adjusted?
Just 3rd highest save percentage all time for goalies.
Okay.
This isn't goalies that have played like 5 games. Like this is career goalies.
Right. Okay. And this goalie has retired, I presume.
You tell me.
That's a tough one. All time.
3rd highest save percentage all time.
Well, I'm pretty sure number 1 is Hasek.
Yes, it is.
Tim Thomas is up there, though he didn't play very much, but he's up there.
Not Tim Thomas.
I know, but he's like up in the rankings. Lundqvist, I think, is up there, though probably his latest numbers have dropped. 3rd highest all time. I'm going to say a goalie who just retired. I'm going to say Roberto Luongo.
That is wrong. Roberto Luongo and Henrik Lundqvist have a .919 career percentage, which is excellent. The 3rd highest save percentage of any goalie all time currently is still playing, and it is Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. He has a .921 career save percentage. Dominic Hasek has a 92. He has a .9223 save percentage.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins.
Who's number 2?
Number 2 is Chris Osgood. Nah, I'm just kidding. Number 2 is Marty Brodeur. Nah, I'm just kidding.
I know it's not him.
That's an inside joke between me and Rachel. So yes, number 1. So number 1 is
Hasek?
Dominic Hasek. Tuukka Rask is number 3. Number 2 was I don't remember.
All right, no worries. I'll look it up. Tuukka Rask. That's I knew he was really good, but I would not have guessed that. I thought it was like someone like Luongo because he's also really good.
Yes. Yeah, it's not Luongo. Luongo and Lundqvist have the same career
Right. Okay.
ones.
Tuukka Rask, he could have been a Leaf. That could be Toronto Maple Leaf goalie up there.
Actually, number 2 is a Leafs player, a Leafs goaltender. He played from 1953 to 1970.
A Leafs goalie?
His name is Johnny Bower. He has a career .921 save percentage.
They didn't really keep save percentage back then, though, so I don't know how accurate that is.
That's from a pretty refutable sports site.
Is it from TSN?
No, it's not from TSN.
Because save percentage wasn't kept until, I believe, like the 60s, so they wouldn't have it for the first bit of his career, to my knowledge.
But he's still got a .921 percentage.
Wow, Johnny Bower, attaboy.
Number 3 is Tuukka Rask. So now for the final question of trivia. And this is the hardest one.
Okay.
So, who scored over 100 points in one NBA game, and what team was it against?
Over 100 points? I know who it was. It was Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, so what team did Wilt Chamberlain score 100 points on in 1962? This is the only game in recorded NBA history where a player got 100 points.
What team
Who was his opponent?
It wasn't even the NBA at that point, wasn't it? It was like the ABA or something.
Yes, but it's a really funny answer.
I don't know.
So, we know it's not the Toronto Raptors.
I know it's not the Raptors. They weren't around yet.
The answer is the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks.
That is really funny.
So Wilt Chamberlain Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points on the New York Knicks. The closest player to reach 100 points single against a team other than Wilt Chamberlain was Kobe Bryant with 82 points against the Toronto Raptors.
That's right.
I just had to throw that in there, folks.
Well, so I got 1.5 right.
Yeah, you did. You got 1.5. That's better than me already.
That's not bad.
That's much better than I was already. And
Are you surprised I knew the Wilt Chamberlain answer?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. We've been talking about basketball, so I figured.
We have been.
Yeah, so you're already doing better than I am. So this means I am totally dreading next week when Rachel does trivia for me. And on that note, it is time to end. On behalf of Rachel and I, thank you so much for tuning into Cross Continent Chat Sports Podcast. On a side note, Rachel and I would like to show our support and really give our best wishes to those who are affected by Hurricane Isaias, not just in Miami, Florida, where I'm coming from. I'm going to be going through this as well, but also the folks that were affected in Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and of course, Freeport in the Northern Bahamas again, unfortunately. So wishing them the best, wishing them safety. Please tune in and help out in any way you can. Good night.